Hi guys, and welcome back to Rachel's Enchanting Cakes. Now today I want to show you on how to make one of my most popular cakes, the light up frozen castle cake, and boy is it a stunner. Look at that. All the towers are completely edible. I'm going to take you through everything step by step. If you like what you see, please do subscribe, share the video, have fun and bake, bake, bake away. Let's get cracking. The first thing we need to do is cover this 14-inch square cake drum. The base of the castle will be an 8-inch round cake, but we need plenty of room for the towers, so I choose to use a 14-inch square. I have rolled out exactly 1 kilogram of fondant. That equates to 1,000 grams of fondant, and as you can see, I've tried my best to keep it in a square shape. Using my usual tools to place it on the drum, I've got my smoothers, a knife, and the first thing I'm going to do is use my cooled down boiled water for hygiene reasons, and just place it over my 14-inch square cake drum. And just like on previous tutorials, I just want to mention I have rolled this in between 5mm spaces. If you've never watched one of my tutorials before, basically when you roll your fondant in between these, it stays exactly 5mm, so you get a nice even covering. I'm then going to lift my rolled out fondant using my rolling pin and just place it gently onto the board, like so. And as you can see there's literally just the right amount, so we're not going to have too much to cut off. If I place this so it's more central, I'll move these out of the way. And then it's just a case, like before, if I just make sure the turntable's on. Like I said before, I would highly advise investing in a turntable. Using your smoother, take it to the edge, and then just run your smoothers along the edge, like so. Just so you can see the line where you're going to cut. And this is where it might end up a little bit misshapen, but we'll adjust that. So just get your knife and go down each side. Now, first of all, you can see there's not much fondant left at all. This can go in a bag to be used later. So we have used just the right amount. It's these corners, if I hold this up, you see how the corners have stretched a little. So if you just manipulate them, it's because it's still sticky underneath. And that is perfect. Now, we are going to be adding snowflakes to this using an airbrushing kit and stencils. So it does need to be left to set overnight, just so when we place on the stencil, we don't leave an indentation into the fondant. Before I leave it to set, here I have got my 8-inch round loose base from the cake tin, because it's going to be an 8-inch round cake. Place it towards the back of the drum. So this will be the front part where we've got happy birthday and the turrets going up, the little towers and everything. So just place it around there and then just mark where you're going to be putting your actual cake using a knife. Okay, and gently remove that because the fondant's still soft. So now I know where the cake's going. And this, I actually like to pop in the oven and just put on the oven light, and it will help it set an awful lot faster. So let's get to the next step, actually covering and crumb coating that cake. So for my frozen castle cake, I have chosen to do my delicious Belgian chocolate cake. I do have a recipe for this, and on the recipe is the exact amount you will need to make 2 8-inch cakes. It's all explained on there. It's a YouTube tutorial, and I will leave a link to that in the description below this video if you want to take a look. So I've already levelled off my first cake. If I just show you how lovely and deep they end up, that gives you a rough idea. This one's still wrapped in cling film. To level the cakes off, I have used a cake leveller, and you simply just cut through the cake like so. Obviously I'm not doing it to this one's covered up just to give you an idea, and you end up with a lovely levelled cake. I have made some delicious Cadbury's buttercream. Again, I have this as a separate YouTube tutorial, and all you need to do is replace the vanilla extract with 100 gram of Cadbury's chocolate when you've melted it down. So I've placed this in a piping bag because for me, I find that's the easiest way to do it. And we're going to fill the centre of this cake first. So, just enough. So that was one piping bag full, and I still have some of this from the recipe left in my mixer ready for the crumb coat later. So I'm just going to smooth this out. That's lovely. And then all I'm going to do is pop this in the fridge for about 20 minutes before we add the next part. I'm just going to show you how I levelled off this cake, which has now been in the fridge for about 20 minutes, so I can touch the buttercream and it's nice and firm. You simply take your leveller and just cut through straight through the cake. Really as easy as that. Take off the dough. I'm going to place that on a plate. And then this gorgeous cake, if I just show you the inside of the cake as well. See all those lovely bubbles? It's because of the way the air's been beaten into the cake. So place that upside down. So we've got a perfectly straight cake. So move these out of the way. I'm bringing the rest of that buttercream. And now for those who have made cakes a lot in the past, this is called crumb coating. Basically, I'm now going to coat this entire cake with the leftover Cadbury's buttercream to give the fondant something to stick to. Once I've completely covered the cake, I'm then going to place it back in the fridge for about 30 minutes before I add the fondant. And that is all you need to do. Now what I'm going to do is place this in the fridge to set, and then like on a previous tutorial, once I've washed this palette knife, if you heat it just over the stove or your gas stove and then go over the set buttercream, it will smooth out any ridges you have before you cover it with fondant. So that's the base of the castle. Whilst this is setting, I'm now going to show you how to construct those towers. To make all of the towers, I use Rice Krispie treats, and you're probably wondering why I've got these certain shaped pans, but it is for a reason, trust me. So in total, for this particular cake, you're going to need 600 gram of marshmallows, Rice Krispies. Basically all we're going to be doing is melting down these marshmallows in a pan with a little bit of butter so they don't burn. We're going to be doing it very slowly, pouring it into the Rice Krispies, and voila, we have Rice Krispie treats. You're going to need a 10-inch square cake tin. We're going to be actually pushing the Rice Krispies into this, so I find it best if you've got a loose based cake tin in order to be able to get them out. And a 4-inch round cake tin. Again, it's all loose based, so I can just push the base up to get everything out of there. Cling film, that's very important. And these cutters, they are the smallest out of my circle cutters, the 3 smallest, but they measure 5 centimetres in diameter, 6 centimetres in diameter, centimetres in diameter. Apart from all of this, you're also going to need a fresh batch of buttercream. I'm going to be using vanilla buttercream for the Rice Krispie Treat towers, just because it complements the flavours of the actual Rice Krispie Treats. And you can find that recipe on my YouTube channel, which I will leave in the description below. So let's get cracking, and I'll show you how to make very simple towers that look absolutely outstanding, but more importantly, they taste delicious. So all I have done here is melted 600 gram of marshmallows very slowly over a low heat. I added a little bit of butter to the pan to help prevent it from burning. And here I have 300 gram of Rice Krispies. And all I'm going to do now, you have to work fairly fast with this because you don't want your marshmallows to start hardening up, is add this to all of the Rice Krispies. Be careful as well because obviously it's sugar. It's going to be extremely hot. Okay, I'm just going to move this messy pan to one side and out of the way. There we go. Okay then, now you'll also notice I have greased my 10-inch square cake tin and my 4-inch round cake tin. I have done that in the UK using Stork. You can use anything that you want to use. We'll also notice that I've got some on a spoon, and that's because we're going to be getting a little bit messy and need to use our hands, and the grease from the Stork on your hands helps prevent the Rice Krispies sticking too much. So first of all, we're just going to mix this all in. That's lovely, just until the majority are covered. And now I'm going to cover my hands with some Stork. You need to be very careful with this because in here it might still be extremely hot. First of all, I don't want to waste any, so I'm going to take it off the spoon. I can touch that, it's not burning me. And then it's time to get your hands in there and make sure it's all mixed together properly. Some more grease just on my hands. You can see some sticking to my hands, but not too much. And that's just because I'm using the Stork as like a grease. Okay. Let's pick some up. You want to work with this whilst it's warm and soft. Make a bit more grease. Make sure you push it down. And we really want to pack this up. You know, we really want to fill it to the top, push it down. The more we add there and the more we keep pushing it down, the less gaps there will be. So just keep pushing down and adding those lovely Rice Krispie Treats. A bit more Stork. If you're wondering what this part is going to be, this part is going to be the second tier on the cake that you see bang in the centre where the two towers are next to it. You would really struggle doing this in cake as I do need to cut some of these Rice Krispie Treats away. So I just inform my customer that the second tier and all of the towers are Rice Krispie Treats. I've never had any problems and everybody's absolutely loved them. I've lost count how many I've sold. So that is really pushed in. So what I'm going to do now, just before it starts to stick in there, is push it out. This is why I like to use loose based cake tins. Take the top off and we'll just leave that to one side for now. So the rest of our Rice Krispie Treat mixture we're going to add to our 10-inch square tin. And that is what you want to end up with. Now we need to make the towers. So I'm just going to tip this upside down first. I've got some baking parchment on here just to help prevent things from sticking. These are still very soft, so they're still going to move about. That's what we want, a nice sheet of Rice Krispie treats. If I just move the stalk out of the way, you can see things an awful lot better then. So with this sheet, we have got 4 large towers to start off with. So I'm going to be using the circle cutter. And I'm just going to cut in, like so. Remember, this is all roughly the same height. Now when you've got your second piece, because it's still soft, they will stick together themselves. And that's exactly what you want. Now you're probably thinking, there's not enough there to make a tower. So what you do next, you just get your Rice Krispies, remember they're nice and pliable. Turn it that way, sorry. And then you just squish these in, like so. Probably put a few too many in there, but you get the idea. And you literally, that's how we're going to be building up our towers. And you're going to do that for each one. So I'm going to continue to do these and show you what the towers look like. So here are my 4 towers, which are now complete. So if I just hold one of these up to the camera, you can see they're all stuck together. They're starting to go a little hard now as well. So they're not as sloppy inside all over the place. I'm just going to place them there. You'll notice I've tried to make them all the same height. If not, you just manipulate them slightly. I still have a few left over here. So now we're going to do the little tower with the 5 centimetre diameter circle cutter. Started my small tower, but we're going to now need more. So what happens to this one? This is our second tier, and we're going to be having a tower on either side. But to fit it on an 8-inch round cake, we need to make some indentations just here. For those, I've used a 6 centimetre circle cutter. This is where the 7 centimetre circle cutter comes into play, because we're going to be covering these with buttercream and fondant, and we need this gap slightly larger. So just get your circle cutter and push down. I do sometimes hurt my hands doing this because you need the rigid edge at the top. So just be careful. Again, it's whilst everything is still soft, just so that you can manipulate things with your hands back into shape. You've got more Rice Krispie treats now to use for the tower. For our central tower, and a lot smaller to be able to fit just there when it goes on. So if I just move these out of the way, just so that you can see everything. Put the large towers at the back, the small one at the front. I have a few leftover Rice Krispie treats, which I shall just pop into there for now. Move those out of the way. So we need another gap on this side. Everything will fit. So if I have that as my back, that tower's going to fit nicely there, and those will fit snugly in there. You can see how it's all starting to take shape now. So the towers, just to clarify, 6 centimetre circle cutter. The small tower that's going to be going on top of your second tier is a 5 centimetre circle cutter. And then you use the 7 centimetre circle cutter just to make a nice gap in there for the rest of your towers. So now we're going to cover these in buttercream, and I'm just going to show you how to do that quickly. Wrap them in cling film. Yes, you heard me, cling film is a good way to do it, and leave them in the fridge overnight. You'll notice here that I've actually rolled out some cling film. This is the best way I have found to get a smooth finish, even though we're going to be covering them with fondant. But I do want to seal everything in, and because they're also stopping in the fridge, they're going to be covered in buttercream to seal the Rice Krispie treats from the air. And then they're also getting wrapped in cling film, which will also seal them from the air. So you'll still have a lovely fresh Rice Krispie treat. You just pick up your castle, and using a palette knife or any knife that you have. Okay, so that doesn't look like a tower at all yet, but all that buttercream is what's going to protect it. It's the cling film that's going to make it work. So simple, and I just came up with the idea when I ended up getting in a sticky mess when I made my very first frozen castle. First of all, you start your cling film going, and then you just roll it. And it really is as easy as that if I just hold that to the camera. So I'm going to repeat that for all of the towers. For this one, slightly different, but the same as well. So I'm just going to get some more cling film and place it on my work surface. Now for this one, you want less buttercream in this area, because we need to make sure we keep enough room to be able to fit these turrets in. This is why you do everything whilst it's soft. Add a little bit of extra buttercream if there's any gaps. But you've got to remember, a lot of this cake is going to get covered with an awful lot of different elements. Okay. So what would I do to this now? Let's pretend all of these are covered. In the fridge, I actually place the towers one at either side, even though they're not going to stick to each other. But the buttercream will set, and this will set, so I am able to easily fit them together when I do add the fondant. So I'm going to continue to do the same to the rest of my towers, leave them in the fridge overnight, and the next step will be to cover the cake that we've already made and crumb coated, and then I'm going to show you the best way I have found to cover these towers before we start to assemble the frozen castle. To cover my cake, first of all, I have coloured 1.5 kilogram of fondant, so that's 1,500 gram of fondant, the Sky Blue by Rainbow Dust. You're only going to need 900 gram to cover the cake, which you do first. There will be some left over, which you put with the rest of the fondant, and then there will be enough to cover each of the towers for this cake. That way, because you're colouring it yourself, you know the shade's going to be correct for everything. So you need to make 1.5 kilogram of sky blue fondant, or any blue that you want to use. So again, I've rolled this in between spaces. If you've watched any previous tutorials, spaces are exactly 5 millimeters thick, 900 gram to cover an 8-inch round cake. What I'm going to do using my smoothers is just go around the base of the cake. Okay, now I want to cut off the excess fondant, and this is what will be used with the extra fondant that I also made to cover the rest of those towers. So I'm just going to place this in the bag so it doesn't go dry. And now spend as much time as you want smoothing out this cake. Fairly happy with that. Now I'm going to place this back in the fridge just overnight, because like I've mentioned before, not only will the buttercream go lovely and hard again, but this fondant will also be extremely hard. So it'll be very easy to lift the cake without damaging it and placing it onto that decorated cake drum that we did right at the beginning of this tutorial. So the next step is to cover in those towers. Now to cover each one of these towers which have been left overnight, it's really simple. The method I have, I roll out a sausage shape first and I just place it next to there and check that it's the right height. Using my spacers again, that's where I'm going to roll this out into an oblong shape, but try and keep it this width. Lovely. Now what I'm going to do, using my Stanley knife, is just cut a straight edge. I'm not going to worry about the other end just yet. Let's place that to one side. Now I also have some edible glue and a brush because this buttercream is really hard, and I just want to give it a little bit to stick to. You could use a little bit of cooled down boiled water if you want to. We're only going to be using a tiny bit because whilst we are touching everything, this buttercream will start to go soft. So you just unwrap it from the cling film and place it on your sausage shape. Align it with one of the spacers if you have them. I find that's easiest. And then a little bit of glue, and all I'm going to do with this is put it down this side of the fondant. Okay, going to lift it up. Don't worry about all the icing sugar, we're going to steam that off, or you can brush it off later. And finally, it is actually going to be airbrushed, and then you just roll up your tower until you get to the end. It will leave a little mark like so. Got a lovely straight line just there. Finish rolling. Seal it off. So if you just bring in this fondant to the centre, and there we have it. That's our first tower. I'm going to repeat these for the other 3 large towers and the small tower, and then just show you the basics on how to cover the middle part and then start to assemble it all together. I've just finished covering all of the towers. Now I need to cover this centrepiece whilst the towers haven't set. So I've just rolled out an oblong shaped piece of fondant. This is literally the only amount of fondant I have left. So the 1.5 kilogram of fondant that I told you to make right at the beginning for the tutorial and the towers is literally perfect. It's the right amount. So we want the front and the back to be covered really well on this. And then you cut the rest away. Just like so. Taking your time. You can see where the tower's going to be going now, and then what I do with my fingers, I just push all of that in, because we are going to be sticking this, or should I say sticking the towers to this with some of the leftover buttercream that I had from yesterday, and also a little bit of edible glue. Now I'm going to repeat that on the other side. That is lovely. Now we can finally start to assemble it. We need to assemble this and place it in the fridge, and we need to do it before this fondant starts to set. So, plenty of buttercream. This is left over from yesterday. And just place it where your towers are going to be. Still have plenty of fondant just around the edges, so for this I'm going to add some more edible glue. I'm going to place it this way round because this is going to be my back. The larger area is the front, just because I'm going to have a number popping out of there. So I have 2 of my towers that are relatively soft. And my small tower. I'm going to add the small tower first. Plenty of glue. And just make sure that the seam is towards the back. And this is why we do it whilst the fondant's all still soft, because otherwise a lot of it would be cracking right now. And then more edible glue down the sides of the small tower. And this is why you want to be leaving it for a while to set. And then literally you just push in those guys. It really is as simple as that. Okay, so let's get to assembling this castle now. I'm going to place this in the fridge, and once it's set we can finally assemble it and start decorating, which for me is always the best part. Now whilst we wait for the top of the cake to set, we could actually start decorating the base of the cake and get those towers on there. So all I have done, I've taken this fresh out of the fridge, lifted it and placed it onto that decorated cake drum that we did the other day. I am going to find this a tad more difficult just because I'm doing it at an angle, but I want to show you what you're going to need. The first thing I'm going to do is add the 2 remaining towers. So first of all, just pick them up and make sure the seam of the tower is where the cake is. Just be careful not to place any finger marks in there. Okay, I'm just going to have a look at that from my angle. And that looks lovely. I think we'll just move that one up a little bit, just so it's even on both sides. These cakes end up extremely large. That's lovely. So to stick those down, all I use is some edible glue. So I place it down the seam, but also logically I place it underneath because it's going on that fondant base. And once it's all set, it will not go anywhere. It's extremely sturdy. And just make sure I can see what I'm doing. And then just put a little bit of weight on it. It doesn't matter if you put weight on the top, because we're going to be covering those with the little turrets. Push it to the side and make sure it's on there lovely. Right? I'm just going to repeat that with the second one. So even without the top, you can see it's already starting to take shape, but the best thing about this castle is everything is 100% edible. Now, I'm choosing to use an airbrushing kit. I've used these on all of my frozen castles. Now, I understand they can be expensive. If you're new to baking, there are alternatives. You can use the edible tints and make your own food paint and paint on the snowflakes and paint up and down the cake. It would just take an awful lot longer. The stencils I am using are by Designer Stencils. I don't know if you want to find the same ones. These are the large ones. Just take them out. I bought these from Lindy Smith's site. If I just hold it towards there so you can see the different snowflakes we have. So I have 3 of those, large, and I also have 4 small ones. Just so you've got some nice different options there. And I actually use all of them whilst I'm airbrushing. If you didn't want to use the edible tint, you could use what I'm going to use today. I'm using the Rainbow Dust 100% metallic food paint, and that's what I'm going to be doing to airbrush this cake. So let's get started. Okay, so first of all, I just want to add a bit of definition to that castle. So I'm going to start at the back of the cake. I'm just going to go up and down in that sort of motion. That's lovely. You can see how it gives it a much better effect. Now I want to add just a little bit to the base on the actual cake drum. see I've not sprayed half as much on the cake drum, but I did want to give it a little dusting of blue. You now need to leave that to dry. I like to leave mine for about 30 minutes, but it all depends on the weather conditions as well. Before we can add the snowflakes. If we try to add them too soon, we're going to be placing on this template on something wet and just getting into a sticky mess. You'll know when the cake's ready to airbrush your snowflakes on, because when you touch it, nothing will come off onto your fingers. I'm going to start by placing a snowflake onto the cake drum, switch on the airbrushing kit, that gives you a rough idea at what you need to do. Just use all your different snowflake templates of all the different sizes, and then I will be back in the next part just to show you how to attach the top towers to the cake, dowel it correctly, and then you just repeat with the top of the cake what I've done to the bottom. This is the best bit about cake decorating, when everything slowly starts to piece together. It's just so rewarding. I'm just going to hold this up to the camcorder for you, just so you can see in detail. You'll also notice I've just added some shop-bought wafer paper snowflakes to there as well. Just give it a little bit more definition. It is getting quite heavy already. But now I'm going to show you how to add this, and then all you need to do is repeat the process that I have done below. So first of all, this has been in the fridge for a while. See how it all holds together? You take it off and you place it on your cake. Now I need enough room for a name going around here, so you have to take that into consideration. And the further back you can get these, the best. So yeah, I'm happy with that. So then just getting your knife, just mark, if I do it from the front, gently. There we go, right, I'm going to lift this back off and just place it on here. There we go, that way around. So now I have a rough idea, if I just move that out of the way, where this needs to go. So if we just move that. Now here I've got some fantastic cake dowels that I've recently bought. As you can see, they're really, really thick. You can use any size that you want. I'm just using these because obviously you won't need to use as many. If they are the really thin ones, you will need to use more. You can also use the straws because they're an awful lot easier to cut. So I'm going to have one of these where each tower is. This cake's still relatively hard because it's not been out of the fridge for very long, and you push this right down into this set fondant base. Get your pencil and just draw a rough line and then pull it back out. This is always the hard bit, pulling them out. There's a little bit of cake in there. That's completely normal. I'm just going to draw over this line again, just so I can see it a bit better. Now I normally use a pipe cutter for my cake dowels, but the pipe cutter doesn't seem to work on these very well. So I use my washed Stanley knife. There we have it, and then we've just pushed that back into the cake the way we pulled it out. That's lovely. And that will support that side of the tower. Now you're probably thinking, well, she hasn't put the towers or the second tier onto a cake board. That's because it's Rice Krispie trees and not cake. These dowels are not going to be able to push up through the Rice Krispie treats. However, if it was all cake, they would be able to, and then you would have to cut out a board to fit the shape of that second tier. So now you simply repeat. So I'm going to have another one here. I shall do this with each one of the cake dowels and then show you exactly how many I have added. Just remember, if you're using the thinner ones, you will need to add more. So I've just finished adding my cake dowels. There are only 5 in there because they are so big. And the Rice Krispie treats, you have to remember, are not as heavy as a cake. What's the next job? The leftover buttercream that we have, we're going to use this to stick it to the cake. Finally, the edible glue. Very generous with the edible glue just around the edges. And then we just pick up the top and place it and push down. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to airbrush the top of the cake just like I did the bottom. How stunning does this look? I'm just going to show you how I have done the towers. You will notice I've added a few more wafer paper snowflakes. So you just get some fondant, roll it into a bowl, little bit of icing sugar, and with your fingers literally just turn it into a cone. It really is as simple as that. Now we only need a small tower that's left, so I'm just going to pick this up before I do anything else to it, place it on there, and that's perfect size wise. So I don't want it any bigger than that. My next job is to cover this with some edible glue. Once you've added the edible glue, we want some food contact glitter. Now I'm using the hologram rainbow dust. Just explain to your customer that it is food contact because all these tricks can easily be removed. Okay. And then finally, you don't have to add these if you don't want to. I love them, but the silver balls, it just gives them an extra finish. Lovely. Now we want to add this to the cake, so just using a little bit of edible glue on your tower, and we'll just manipulate this into place. These are what add the magic. The very simple stainless steel balloon light. You literally just twist them and there you have it. And in the dark these look absolutely outstanding. So you just place that on the top. Like so, pushing into the fondant. This fondant's going to set, remember, as well. Now I just want to go around the edges with some of these snowflakes that I mentioned. We are literally almost finished. How amazing is it already looking, and we haven't even added the accents onto it yet. So what do I have on here? I'm just going to take it through here. I have the name on snowflakes using a simple snowflake cutter. I have then placed it into a cocktail stick. However, these are made from modelling paste and have been left to set overnight. The lettering on there, again, I've used these in previous tutorials. I've used click sticks, so you cut your letter out, push it, and it's really simple. Same with the words happy birthday. And finally, the pop-up number 5, as you can see, is nice and hard, it's set. This is also modelling paste left overnight. A cocktail stick just there. And finally, that's been used using a number 5 patchwork cutter. So let's start adding some of these bits, shall we? I also have a shop-bought set of frozen non-edible characters. So I'm going to show you where to place them on the cake and just how simple it is to create something so beautiful. These cakes do normally take me a few days to complete because, as you can see, with all the work that goes into it, I'm just placing some edible glue. These have all been washed in warm soapy water first. But I'm going to place him just there. This is a bit difficult because I'm really pushing him into the base of the fondant that's all set. It's difficult just because I'm doing it from a completely different angle to what I normally would be. So just push them in like so. Now, I'm going to add the number 5, but I've got an extra cocktail stick, and it's because we're going into Rice Krispie treats and not cake. I do not want to accidentally break this number 5. So first, you place it on the cake, so you know roughly where you want it. So it's going to be going there. And then using your spare cocktail stick, push down into those Rice Krispie treats because they're really stiff, and just pull it back out. Plenty of glue. And then just let your number 5 sit nicely. Be gentle with it, remember it is modelling paste. Pushing the base down into the fondant. There. So I'm going to come to the side to do this. Might be a little bit more simple, especially because the camera's facing down, so everything doesn't look quite straight. So we're going to start right from this side, as far out as we can get. But we still need to see Elsa. Just be really gentle. And then I use the last letter of the name and do the same on the other side. Now the final bit that I'm going to do from this angle of the camera before I show you what it really looks like, because it's looking fantastic. All I would do is place my happy birthday at this side of the cake drum. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to neaten up this happy birthday. I'm going to stick it on, and then I will show you what the finished result looks like. There we have it, our outstanding frozen castle cake. How amazing does that look, everybody? You can give this a go at home. Please do like and share the tutorial. Give it a try, amaze your friends, and I will be back very soon with more tutorials. Happy baking, everyone!